forum. What's kind of your first thought? What do you hope to bring to the discussion today?
Excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, excitement. The first thing I always do is who were some of the previous people that spoke at it.
Yeah.
You know, when you see Brett Favre was here, you know, that's pretty cool. John McEnroe was here. In fact, I text Brett this morning when I got in and said, I hope I can hold it up to your standards, you know, on my presentation. So that's always the first thing. That kind of lets me know that it's a very you know, significant event. You know, Pudge Rodriguez was here, you know, so I know the type of people that are here are always, you know, high-level people that are, you know, have a great history in sport. So I was excited about this opportunity. I always enjoy coming to Dallas. You know, it hasn't always been the best place for me, but it's a great city. It's a great football town. Very familiar with SMU, you know, and you know, their great history and tradition and all the things that they've accomplished. You know, Don Meredith was a guy, obviously, that I had great respect for as a player and as a Monday Night Football analyst, which I've done both. So it's always kind of cool when you see, you know, you go to talk to people at the school that he went to, and of course, I don't need to go on the lineage of people that have come through this program, but it's pretty amazing. And you talk about SMU football and the SMU athletic program, some, you know, great history and tradition. So I was excited to have this opportunity.
Speaking of excited, I think back to 1980. Today, by the way, a birthday for Brett Favre and for Jim Plunkett, a young man who you played in November, a 10-7 win at home, didn't win in the Super Bowl later in New Orleans that year. But what I remember about...
I was having a good day.
You were. No, you were. But what I do remember that year, one of the hardest hits I ever saw you take as a quarterback against the Bears, Mike Hartenstein, even Pat Summerall just said, "Oh, wow," and nothing else. Was that the hardest hit you ever took?
That was the hardest hit. Mike Hartenstein of the Bears hit me on Sunday afternoon, and I woke up Tuesday in Pioli Hospital. You know, that was just a good blindside hit. He actually got fined for the hit, but there was no penalty called. I didn't get the fine money, so that didn't help me any. But yeah, that clearly was. I took a lot of hard hits, but that one was one that I clearly would say was number one.
Prior to you coming to Philadelphia in '77, you had the pleasure, I'm going to say, of playing alongside men like Pat Haden and Jim Harris in Los Angeles. You had that great playoff win over the Cardinals, 35-23. What was it like playing with Pat Haden?
It was great. You know, we had a great quarterback room. You know, we had a veteran in James Harris. Pat and I were both kind of the upstarts, you know, looking for an opportunity. We had breakfast every morning at Recreation Park in Long Beach before we went to our quarterback meeting. We became very good friends. We still stay in communication. James is now, you know, an NFL scout, and obviously Pat is the athletic director at USC. So we had a good quarterback room. You know, we all wanted the job. We all fought for the job, but we all supported each other. So it was a good room, and everyone's done pretty darn good with their post-career after leaving the Rams.
I also think back to a story that was told a couple of times through your career when you first came to Philadelphia. Opening day, '78, against your old team, the Rams. Vermeil puts you aside and says, "I don't care what your struggles are. You're my quarterback now till I say it's over and done." You came back and won that game 16-14, and then went on to the playoffs that year before facing Atlanta. What was it like playing for Dick Vermeil?
Well, that moment was still a seminal moment for me. And I use that story when I talked to a lot of quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, as I traveled around the National Football League, and guys talked to me, you know, about my playing days and the lessons I've learned. And I invoked that sideline message I got from Dick Vermeil because it was captured by NFL Films. And at the time, I didn't know Dick Vermeil was wired in that game, you know, where he, you know, you heard everything that was going on. And I can still remember it to this day, you know. I'm down probably about 20 feet from Dick, and he said, you know, the fans are booing. We're having one of those rough days, you know. And he yells, "Jaworski, get over here, get over here." He puts his arm around me and says, "You know, the fans have been changing quarterback around here for years, and they've never won. You're my quarterback, so don't worry about anything. Go out there and play football." And that meant a lot, because when your boss and the head coach tells you you're the guy. Now, I've heard it before from him in meetings, but this was during a game when things weren't going well, and it showed me that I had his support, that I can go out and make a mistake. It's hard enough playing against 11 guys on defense, but if you're worried about a coach that has a short leash, it makes the job even tougher. So that really was one of those great moments. And then it wasn't until a few months later that I realized NFL films that captured that moment, and it's still one that is very, very important to me and one I'm very proud of, because it really showed the relationship that we have. It went beyond just quarterback and coach.
And knowing that you had that NFL Films moment, was that something that kind of clicked with you, saying, you know what, I might want to do this once I'm done playing, be able to study the game that I love and do what you're currently doing now? Was that kind of like a precursor for you?
Not really. You know, when you're playing, you go play to play, week to week. That's where your focus is. You're not looking at a post-career, a post-playing career. I mean, you're just trying to find a way to get better and win football games. I mean, it's very focused, very much a tunnel vision way of life. So, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about coaching. I wasn't thinking about Monday Night Football. I was just thinking how to get a first down.
Since you've played in Philadelphia and the current record holder for passes, yardage in the game, 554, Norm Van Brocklin, came from Philadelphia, played in L.A. also. Was there a part of you that wanted to see Tony Romo set that record on that final drive last week against Denver when he was at 506?
There was literally, in my mind, the process of thinking about Norm Van Brocklin as I was watching the game. I was in Chicago at O'Hare Airport. I did the New Orleans-Chicago game. And I'm watching that fourth quarter, and Tony was absolutely on fire. He was playing phenomenal football, controlling the ball with accuracy, velocity, play calling, tremendous. But when they got the ball back, 80 yards to go, and he was at 50, I don't know what he was at.
506.
506 at that
Yes, sir.
moment. I said, he's going to break Norm's record. I mean, he was in, and unfortunately, you know, you get an interception, but he was really in that zone, and I thought he would break that record that has stood, I believe, since 1951.
51, yeah.
51, yeah.
Of
And
all
in
the-
today's
I'm sorry.
game, by the way,
Yes, sir.
that's pretty hard to believe. Because, man, I will stand by this. I said at the beginning of the year, this season that record will be broken.
I know Warren Moon came close back in 1990 against Kansas City. What quarterback of today impressed you the most, and do you feel that the quarterbacks today go through more scrutiny than back in your day?
Oh my God, yes, because there's so many more media outlets that scrutinize them. We have so much more technology. I'm going to do some stuff here at this luncheon, breaking plays down. That, you know, I remember in the old days, you know, we'd have film. You know, we couldn't look at the film till the next day by the time they developed it. Then the breakdowns and the splicing of the tape and all the film. Now it's instantaneous. You know, coaches are breaking the game down the minute they walk off the field. You know, the technology is great. So and then the media outlets. You know, the national telecast, the national broadcast, the local broadcast, the local media. Players, you know, certainly are under great scrutiny. You know, talk radio, shock radio. There's just so much going on. The players clearly are under much higher scrutiny.
One of the great things about the NFL, you create these relationships over time. You maintain relationships. I remember in 1980, you had an add-on to your team to help you get to the Super Bowl. Number 87, Claude Humphrey. Quick story or two about him, because I know he was one fiery individual.
Yeah, I remember Claude Humphrey when he played with the Atlanta Falcons, and I was with the Rams.
Yes, sir.
And Claude was one of those guys, he'd knock you down, may not get the sack, and he'd tell you, I will be back. He chirped the whole game. You know, he was like Lawrence Taylor, you know, a little bit pre-Lawrence Taylor. You know, a dominant pass rusher, always chirping, always talking. So I was glad that we acquired him a few years later to come to Philadelphia. Not only was he a great football player, but he was a tremendous human being and leader. And when you have a young football team like we had at that time, we needed a guy like Claude Humphrey. I'm telling you that he was a guy that every young player looked forward to talking with at any time about not only the game of football but the game of life, particularly on the defensive side where we had a lot of young players.
Recently, it's been said that by certain players in the media that the 46 and or the cover 2 is becoming a form of obsolete. Do you concur?
There are variations of it all. I would say the cover 2 in its original form might be obsolete, but I've seen it evolve into what we now call quarters coverage, which is a variation of cover 2, man under 2 deep, which is the most predominant coverage scheme now in the NFL, is a certain you know, variety of that. You know, so changes are always being made. So clearly, I would say the old cover 2 in its form, you know, with the middle linebacker running deep to the middle of the field, that's probably gone, but it's certainly been tweaked where it's still a part of, you know, NFL defense today.
And where did the nickname Polish Rifle emanate from?
Pretty interesting story. At Youngstown State, I was Rifle Ron. So I got to Los Angeles, and there was a writer with the Herald Examiner named Bud Ferrillo.